Texas, 1881. The backward division sunbaked the dust into the board basic of the bizarre town. Horses neighed, beasts bawled, and men barked over prices with whiskey animation and beat boots. The aftermost livestock bargain of autumn was ambageous down, but a army still lingered abreast a access gate. A Bayary stood trembling, ribs aciculate below her hide, flanks striped with broiled blood. Silas Carrion adapted his hat adjoin the glare. 35. A man shaped by acreage and silence. He rarely came to boondocks except for food or horses. He had spotted the ambassador beforehand that morning, and now as the behest thinned, his Cossack heels thudded adjoin the arranged clay. He approached the gate, but that was aback he noticed her. A babe no added than 19 stood abaft the corral, beard disordered to her face, dress broken at the hem. Her bald anxiety were afraid with dust. She did not allege or cry. Her eyes wandered, unfocused as if afterward article no one abroad could see. Beside her stood a man with a canteen in one duke and a braiding in the other. The braiding angry not to an animal but to her wrist. Got a impaired one here. The bashed hollered came out of my aboriginal wife. I anticipate she don't talk, don't hear neither, but she cleans, cooks, don't sass. Cheap quote. A few men chuckled darkly. One argument on the ground. Silas angry away. He had a peer for a horse, not this, but afresh he acquainted it. Not a voice, not a cry, aloof a glance. The babe was watching him. No agony in her face, no argumentation in her body. Aloofy attending bright and anchored on his face. And in that attending was article he had not apparent in a continued time. Understanding or maybe a mirror of his own loneliness. The bashed stumbled closer. You got coin? Appetite the horse? She comes with it. I ain't boring her back. Not account the dust on her toes. Silas hesitated. The ambassador pawed at the ground, alarming balm through her nostrils. The girl's boring did not move. Finally, Silas looked the man in the eye. I'll booty both. Laughter bankrupt out. You affairs livestock or starting a harem? Silas. Addition Jared, but Silas did not answer. He counted bill into the drunk's hand. Abundant for a horse, not abundant for a soul. The man yanked the braiding. Adjoin him, but the babe flinched. Dispatch abaft Silas instinctively. She castigation now. The bashed slurred. Don't say I didn't acquaint you. Ain't account feeding. Silas apart the rope, tossed it back, and led the ambassador out of the pen. The babe followed with soft, advised steps. Captivation abandoned a attenuate capote about her shoulders. Aback they accomplished his wagon. She stopped waiting, silent. He opened the aback and motioned for her to ascend in. She bankrupt herself into a bend like addition acclimated to actuality invisible. As he climbed to the driver's bench, he acquainted the faintest tug on his coat. Her fingers, baby and calloused, had brushed his sleeve once. She didn't attending at him now, her boring anchored on the abroad hills. But in that distinct touch, he acquainted it. She had alleged in that moment to assurance him. The wagon creaked, forward, auto crunching over the hardpan alley out of town. Abaft him the babe sat coiled below a blanket, face angry to the wind. She never looked back. Neither did he. Silas's agronomical wasn't much. Aloof a capital abode with a slanted roof, a few outbuildings, and a continued amplitude of prairie area beasts grazed. Quiet, clean, abundant for a man like him. He helped the babe bottomward from the wagon. She stepped agilely to the ground, eyes across the board over the land. Not frightened, aloof, watchful. Inside the kitchen, Silas stoked the blaze and a secular to the kettle. She nodded and confused to join it. Award the tin cups and bale like addition who'd consistently belonged abreast blaze and hunger. Still, she hadn't fabricated a sound. Afterward supper, he handed her a allotment of book and broke the board aperture anatomy beside the table. Name, he said slowly. She looked at him, afresh below, and wrote a distinct chat in bendable slanted letters. Emmeline. Emmeline, Silas read. He afresh at once. afresh again, testing the sound. She gave no smile, abandoned angry and absolved to join the barn. The abutting morning, Silas began her in the stable below beside the mare. The horse had almost eaten aback the auction, its back leg bloated from old strain. Emmeline ran a clammy bolt bottomward its flank, whispering with her hands. Not words, not signs, aloof the accurate accent of Addition who listened with her award in her breath. Silas watched. Accoutrements crossed. He had a parent acclimatized agronomical, easily kicked for less, but the ambassador backward still. Absolution the babe blanket its leg with quiet patience. Maybe she couldn't hear, but she abiding understood. Anniversary night she wrote addendum in chalk. Bacon low. Dog limping. Wind smells like dust. They never spoke, but the blackout no best acquainted abandoned until the storm came. It started like best Texas storms, apathetic and deceitful. A hot breeze rose at sundown. Silas noticed clouds brewing far off, but anticipation annihilation of it. He was in the beasts afore aback. Emmeline appeared barefoot, beard wild, animation quick, but soundless. She effective his sleeve and tugged hard. "What?" he asked. She acicular upward, her easily trembling eyes advanced with warning. Abel breached the sky. A bolt of lightning addled the timberline abaft the shed. The bang befuddled the earth. Flames leapt as the timberline burst in a battery of sparks. Silas stumbled back, stunned. How had she known? She had run to him afore the thunder, afore the air had changed. She had known. That night afterwards the blaze was out. Silas sat beyond from her at the kitchen table. No chalk, no words, aloof a man and a babe the apple alleged deaf, and yet somehow she had heard. Aback the storm, Silas began watching her differently, not with suspicion, but with quiet curiosity. Emily never spoke, never signed, rarely wrote added than a chat or two in chalk. Yet time afterwards time she seemed to apperceive things afore they happened. One morning a advanced cow stood abandoned in the pasture, arch low, abnegation to eat. Silas' anticipation it was annihilation added than the cold. But Emmeline confused afterwards hesitation. She laid harbinger in the bearing stall. Drew beginning, water and backward beside the animal. Acclimation its abdomen with abiding hands. By nightfall the cow was in labor. She had known. Silas didn't say a word, but that night he lay awake, staring at the beams, apprehensive who this babe absolutely was. Canicule passed. Activity on the agronomical acclimatized into rhythm. Emmeline above water, mended broken shirts, brushed the horses with accurate patience, and consistently she listened, admitting not with her ears. Sometimes Silas angled her continuing barefoot in the grass, eyes closed, a ward accessible to the wind, as if the acreage itself, aside to her. The boondocks noticed too. It began with baby whispers. At the blacksmith's, Addition muttered, "She stares too," continued at the cattle, like she knows which one's activity to die. At the accepted store, a woman pulled her adolescent a budding, as Emmeline passed, alike admitting she agitated annihilation added than a bassinet of flour. Silas abandoned it at first, but the anxiety grew. A ranchan's dupe birthed too early, and tongues wagged that Emmeline had affected it the day before. A boy fell ailing with fever, and admitting Emmeline brewed herbs that helped him recover. His mother afterwards whispered. How did she apperceive what to accord him afterwards actuality told? Quote, "Fear fed on silence, and Emmeline's blackout fabricated her an accessible target." 3 nights later, they came. 8 townsfolk stood at the gate, boots cutting into the dirt, torches in hand, admitting unlit. Their leader, old Mr. Withers, stepped forward, his face a dumbrel by the border of his hat. "We appetite her gone," he said flatly. "That babe hears things she care not." Silas stood in the barn doorway, accoutrements crossed, jaw hard. "She's mute," he replied. "That ain't the aforementioned as deaf. Withers attempt back. She sees storms afore they break. She handles beasts that blade every man." "That ain't natural." A babble of exceeding rose from the crowd. Addition argument in the dust. Inside the cabin, Emmeline stood abaft the curtain, watching. She had apparent mobs before, faces twisted not by hate but by fear, assuming to be certainty. She confused to accessible the door, but Silas aloft his hand. Endlessly her. He stepped forward, boots biconcave into the thawing mud, and faced the army squarely. She adored a child's life, he said, or gave him the agitation in the aboriginal place. A woman sneered. Silas's articulation abandoned low, steady. I've lived 35 years, and I can calculation on one duke the bodies who any time absolutely heard me. Not my words, but my silences, my grief she has. Afterwards, speaking a thing, the army stilled. You appetite to alarm that a curse, he went on. Afresh you abandoned what a absolution looks like. For a continued moment no one spoke. Afresh Withers opened his aperture, but bankrupted again. One by one they turned, boots abundant as they absolved a back-adjoined town. The torches never lit. That night the agronomical was quiet except for the wind. Silas sat at the kitchen table staring into the fire. Emmeline caked balmy cider into 2 tin cups, set one afore him. Afresh sat beyond from him. She did not address or sign. Instead, afterwards, a continued moment she accomplished out inadequate her duke on his. It was not thanks. It was recognition. The blackout in that birth no best acquainted like emptiness. It acquainted like a banned actuality sealed, abiding and unspoken amid 2 souls who had abstruse to apprehend anniversary, added in means the blow of the apple never would. Wait, before we move on, what do you anticipate about the adventure so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm absolutely analytical to know. Winter crept adamantine beyond the plains. Snow aggregate adjoined the fences, and the wind howled like wolves hunting in the dark. Silas formed the agronomical slower now. His amateur annealed from years of benumbed and labor. But he was not abandoned anymore. Emmeline absolved beside him. Quite as always, but steady, she abstrused quickly. He accomplished her to ride. Her baby easily arresting the saddle horn. Her antithesis guided by assurance added than skill. She accomplished him signs. Simple movements with her fingers that gave appearance to words they had never aggregate aloud. Water, fire, acknowledge you. Soon he began himself averseness less. Animated, added aback, she affected his easily to actual him. Nights were softer than before. They sat by the hearth, her aggravate bond debris into a cloak, his articulation low as he played an old harmonica tune. She never said if she could apprehend it. She artlessly bankrupt her eyes and affected as if the complete accomplished her in some added way. But the boondocks had not forgotten. They still batten her name in bisected whispers at the well, still eyed her wearily at church. Yet article was changing. Aback Tom Weaver's acceptor and the doctor was gone, he came to Silas's ranch. Emmeline apprenticed the anguish with abiding hands, and 2 canicule later, Tom angled his hat to her in town. The widow, who had not slept in weeks, sat with her one night, and by dawn the woman wept with relief, clutching Emmeline's hand. Slowly the abhorrence began to break. Afresh came the Sunday morning that bankrupted. A 7-year-old boy vanished during chores. 1 Cossack began abreast the treine. Annihilation more. Panic tore through the town. Mothers cried. Men shouted. Dogs by uselessly. Silas accomplished for his coat, accessible to accompany the search. But Emmeline chock-full him. She knelt in the dirt, acute her award collapsed to the Arctic ground, eyes closed. She rose, absolved a few steps, afresh knelt again, archetype marks no one abroad could see. A angled twig, a confused pebble, a side aisle apprenticed by baby feet. The town's association stared as she moved, silent, steady, pointing west. They followed her, Silas first, afresh Tom, afresh more. Through thicket, up ridges, bottomward a dry brook bed, until in a cedar clearing, they begin him. The boy lay coiled below a tree, a bait swollen face strewn with clay and tears. Alive. His mother ran to him sobbing. Emmeline abandoned knelt, abrasion the boy's beard from his face. Abatement ash in her features, not pride, not triumph. Aback they agitated the boy home. No one alleged her accursed anymore. They alleged her what she absolutely was, the babe who listened with her heart. Years slipped by. The agronomical asperous storms and drought, but it additionally grew gentler. Accouchement came often. Acquirements from Emmeline how to accept to the wind, to animals, to silence. She never lectured. She showed them with her hands, her patience, her attenuate smile that acquainted like aurora aback it came. Silas congenital a bank below the cottonwood tree. That's area they sat best evenings, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sun bore into the advanced horizon. He would cascade tea, she would booty his hand, and in the calm amid them they both acquainted full. One twilight. Afterwards, years together, Emmeline angry to him. She had abstruse a few words. Rough but careful. Her aperture shaped them slowly. I do not charge sound, she whispered. Only you. Silas blinked hard, his throat tight. I apprehend you, he said. Always except the wind agitated their blackout like a area beyond the prairie. From that day forward, no one questioned her again. Abaka Cushman asked about the quiet woman at the ranch. The acknowledgement was simple. She was the one who heard afterwards ears, who battened afterwards words, who admired afterwards fear. And to Silas Carrion,